Latin 3, hello, or Salvete. This is Mr. Turner coming at you live from a very late night at Wendell, Common Room 1. Peter and Ian are sleeping soundly, I'm sure. So we're going to try something different today. I'm going to go through the passage via a video rather than on the screen, so you can go through it at your own pace and then check for some understanding of the passage via a Google form. If you hear noises, it's probably because people are getting up and going to the bathroom. What do you need, Leaf?
The elephant right upstairs.
Okay.
I'll see you in the morning.
All right, man. All right. He's Steakhouses. He's Steakhouses here. For these reasons, omnia, everything, aguntur, is done rapitum atque turbata. And you can just take this phrase together in a hurry and with confusion. Okay? In hurry and confusion. Now, the Histe Houses refers to RPC 4 and 5, the two chapters you read in translation. It's basically all the stuff that's going on in Rome right now through Pompey and his supporters that are forcing Caesar to do stuff. Okay, so for these reasons, omnia, everything is done rapidly, or I should say in a hurry and in confusion. Eos spatium datur nec docendi Caesaris propinquus, etc. Okay, so I'm just going to erase this here so we can have a little room here. You have those down, I'm sure. Eos spatium, or I should say spatium, a space. And what's a space here is like of time. A space of time. Nec is not dator, is not given. Okay, is not given to Caesar's propinquis, something like supporters or friends. A space of time is not given to Caesar's supporters, a space of time for docendi eos, for informing him, okay, for letting him know, for letting him know what's going on. So a space of time is not given to Caesar's supporters for the of informing him. And the docendi there is a gerundive. The reason it's a gerundive is because it's modifying a noun. Okay, it's modifying its own object. If it were a gerund, you'd have a gerund and then an object in a different case. You could also take docendi with Caesaris and do it the following way. You could do it this way if you wanted to, although I recommend doing it that way. If I could just erase this real quick, you could take it somewhat differently and do something like this. You could say a space of time for informing Caesar was not given to his supporters. You could do it that way. You could have docendi going with Caesaris or docendi going with eos, both being genitive singular. All right. Next bit. Nor, and this is tricky, nor is an opportunity granted to the tribunes of the plebs for disputing, for contesting their own danger, nor even, and what's reused as sort of an opportunity given, nor even an opportunity given for holding on to the most fundamental right with veto, a fact which Lucius Sulla had left behind. All right, we'll go through that one again because I know it's a little tricky. Nor was any opportunity granted to the tribunes of the plebs for disputing or contesting their own danger, nor even was any opportunity given, right, was any opportunity granted for holding on to the most fundamental right by veto, a right which Lucius Sulla had left behind. Okay? Lucius Sulla being a dictator himself in 88 BC. Oh no, I'm sorry, not that was way too before this time. Having held the office of dictator himself, and being in many ways a Sulla. I see in him many a Sulla, is what Marius is supposed to have said about Caesar. So, no time is given for Caesar's friends to let him know what's going on. The tribunes of the plebs aren't given any time to dispute the dangers that exist towards them, nor of holding on to their fundamental right of exercising their veto. But on the seventh day, they, being the tribunes of the plebs, are compelled to think about their own safety. De sua salute. And quote here, I think you can kind of take as the next quote here. Let me just get rid of these numbers so I don't start writing over each other. This quote here, I think you can take as whereas. Whereas those most turbulent tribunes of the plebs in earlier times, superioribus temporibus, whereas those most turbulent tribunes of the plebs in earlier times had been accustomed to look back and fear, we might even say, had been accustomed to regard with apprehension, I think is what you take this phrase together, regard with apprehension, at length, or in total, 8 months of various acts of government, which is a long-winded way of saying that in years past, even the most turbulent of tribunes of plebs were able to experience 8 months of government action going by, not 7 days. Okay? We'll go through that one again. I got a couple grammar notes to bring up as well. Whereas those most turbulent tribunes of the plebs in earlier times had been accustomed to regard with apprehension nearly, denique, nearly, or finally, or at length, some sort of adverb there, nearly 8 whole months. Menses there is accusative there. Initially you had your endings in the third declension. You had blank, is, e, m, e, and then it was is, ibos, is, ibos. Over time, the is changed it to an e. Okay, so this is sort of an archaic form, nominative or accusative forms of the third declension. So menses there is accusative. I think even in your textbook it might say post octo menses, and that would make it more clear that it's accusative as being the object of post. But anyway, nearly 8 months of various, or varying deeds being done. In other words, government work. Okay? So Caesar's lamenting the fact that this is all happening really fast. Democracy is supposed to be slow, right? That's one of the critiques of democracy, is that it moves slowly, but it's supposed to, especially American democracy. And when things start speeding up a little bit with a sense of urgency, you have to start asking some questions. But then if you do, you're considered to be soft and weak, and in some cases unpatriotic. Anyway, decuritor is a little weird. recourse is had. It's an idiomatic translation. Recourse is had to that most final, or to that final, to that extreme and final. And final decree of the Senate, the Senatus Consultum Ultimum, with which, and now this is really, really tricky, so stay with me. Quo, which, okay, or by which, probably, never before has been, which had never previously been restored to. It's kind of like literally stepped down to, okay? To which maybe, how about quo is to which? To which never before has been restored to, has been, restored to by the boldness of its supporters, of its bringers, unless almost in flames, or in, I'm going to say in ipso, in the very burning up of the city, in the very burning up of the city, and in desperation of health of all. What is that? Another long wind of saying, going through that. All right, I gotta go through that again. I know it's a little tough. Okay, so let's go through it again. I'm not gonna do numbers. You can do them on your own. I'm just taking up too much spot here. But if we start here, I'll do some numbers here. Sorry. Recourse was had to that extreme and final decree of the Senate, to which never before has been restored, to which resorted to, I should say resorted, by the boldness, by the daring of its supporters, unless almost in the very engulfment of the city, and in desperation of health of all. So another way of saying it would be, this type of measure, this type of government measure, this type of sanctioned measurement, action has never taken place in the city, except in situations where everyone's safety is in question, and people who advocated are bold enough to do so. So it's rare, okay? It's rare. We could maybe the equivalent for us might be something like martial law. Martial law. All right. Dent. Okay. This is a subjunctive form. Dent. It's a subjunctive form. Present subjunctive. It's going to be Yosef. So let the consuls. I'm getting the let from the subjunctive form of dent. Let the consuls. Let the praetors. Let the tribunes of the plebs, and those who are for the consuls near the city. Let them literally give work. What do we think that means? Let them give effort. Let them take note. Let them take heed. Let them be on watch. Now, ne can mean lest or so that not. Let's take so that not. So that the Republic may not take anything of detriment. What do you think he means there? go through that again. Remember I said den is the present subjunctive, a usive subjunctive. Let the consuls, let the praetors, let the tribunes of the plebs, and those who are for the consuls near the city, let them give effort, right? Let them take note, let them take heed, let them, what's the best way to say it? I said it earlier, let them take note, or take notice, or be on guard, lest, or so that the republic may not take, or may not take anything, an indefinite pronoun, of detriment. That's a genitive there. It's sort of it's a part of the genitive technically. Okay. Let the people in charge, the people who were elected to public office, let them all be held accountable. In other words, let them do their jobs so that nothing detrimental were to happen to the republic. Now, of course, that is detrimental in Caesar's eyes, right? Let them not do anything that would harm the state, when in fact, the biggest threat to the state, according to Pompey and his supporters, is Caesar. So we have a little bit of, I don't want to say irony here, but certainly an interesting phrase from Caesar, given the potential threat that he possesses to the very state he's worried about. All right, so go through those lines, go through them as you can, write down questions you have. If I went too quickly or if I was unclear about things, be sure to ask them as I'm walking around, or when we come back for a group session, okay? And then complete the Google form just to see how you did with these lines. All right, signing off from Wendell. Waleete.